The space race, which happened during the 1950s and 1960s, is considered to be an extension of the Cold War. The Cold War was a competition between the Communist Soviet Union and the capitalist America. The Cold War was a chance for both the United States and the Soviet Union to prove to the other country that their political system worked better and more efficiently than the others. The space race portion of the Cold War began on October 4th, 1957, when the USSR launched Sputnik 1, and then less than a month later launched Sputnik 2 on November 3rd. After an unsuccessful 1957, the United States were looking for some redemption, and they got their redemption introducing the Explorer and Vanguard programs, Explorer 1 being launched on January 31st, and then Vanguard 1 being launched on March 17th. Another major event of the space race was when the United States replaced NACA, the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics, to NASA, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. NASA became the official organization of space travel for the United States on October 1st, 1958. 1959 was a quiet year for both the Soviets and the United States, with the Soviets launching Luna 1, 2, and 3, and the USA launching Pioneer 4. And now the 1960s, a decade of advancement. The advancement of this decade all started on November 8th, 1960, when John F. Kennedy was elected the 35th President of the United States. After 2 years of nothing successful being done for the Soviets, they finally decided to make their mark in the race. They do this by sending a man, Yuri Gagarin, up into space to orbit Earth. Yuri being launched on April 12, 1961. However, the United States aren't very far behind them less than a month later, sending Alan B. Shepard into space orbiting the Earth. He is the first American in space. In January 1961, the United States launched HAM. However, HAM wasn't a space shuttle or probe or anything like that. HAM was a chimp. 1963 was not the best of years for the United States. Although the Apollo program had begun, they had also lost the guy who started it all, President John F. Kennedy, who was assassinated in Dallas on November 22nd. However, on the other side of the world, the Soviets had landed the first woman astronaut in space. And now onto the year 1965. In this year, the Soviets again took a large jump and set a man, Alexei Leonov, on the world's first spacewalk, this taking place on March 18th. Back in the United States, NASA is busy playing catch-up once again to the Soviets. However, on June 3rd, the US gets astronaut Ed White up into space, and he performs the first American spacewalk. In 1966, both the US and the Soviet Union begin to land probes and cameras onto the moon. The US does it with the Surveyor 1 probe, and the Soviets do it with the Luna 9 probe. 1967 was not the busiest of years for either of the space programs. The only big thing that did happen was to the US when during a launch test on January 27th, the crew of Apollo 1 was killed due to a fire inside the capsule. By the time 1968 came around, the two sides were getting close to their final goal of the moon. For example, the US launched Apollo 7 and put it in space for 10 days to test and study it. And then the Soviet Union launched Zond 5, which carried animals, plants, insects, bacteria, and many other living things around the moon and back. 1969 was the final year of the main space race, and this year was dominated fully by the United States, with the July 20th moon landing of the Apollo 11 and the second moon landing of the year. This moon landing labeled a precision lunar landing of the Apollo 12. So there you have it. This has been all about the space race and the main events of it. There was no real winner of this race, but that part is up to you. Thank you.